Split Happens, a podcast sponsored by Sasso, Guerrero, and Henderlite, explores the emotional and legal challenges of divorce, offering insight and real-world advice to help families navigate change with clarity, compassion, and resilience.
I'm Katie Garner.
And I'm Jay Henderlite. I'm a board-certified marital and family law attorney at Sasso, Guerrero, and Henderlite, and this is Split Happens.
And today we are touching on something that, honestly, I had never really thought about until I was just thinking, what topics would be really interesting for the podcast and kind of fun? And I thought, I'm big into etiquette. I've collected etiquette books since I was 12. Haven't read one of them, but I use them for decor. But in the courtroom, you have to use etiquette.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not the etiquette that you and me learned at Cotillion.
Right,
when our parents forced us to go and
Twice.
dance awkwardly in middle school.
Now that I look back, it's fun. And
Was it? I don't
think
remember.
so.
Anyway, on to courtroom etiquette.
Sure.
So this is a big part of any kind of court case, but particularly family law, because family law is all about the people and the personalities and the emotions involved. And so there are a lot of things that people do or don't do when they come to court that can create problems. Biggest one, you want to dress the part.
You mean my ripped jeans aren't going to get me far, and like my, tank top that says like "sweetie"?
Probably not.
Something I saw on jury duty once. It's fun.
Jury duty, yeah. I mean, I started as a public defender, and I remember once I had a guy who showed up to court for a pot charge wearing a big old marijuana leaf on his shirt. Not a good look, particularly when it was
Guilty.
illegal then. I don't have quite that in family law, but what does happen is, people don't always take family court seriously, because while we're talking about your family and we're talking about relationships, and that can always come with the associated emotions and all of the things, you're still going to court.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's still a serious place. It's where a judge is going to make decisions about your life, and you need to at least look like you put some effort into being there. And you don't need to wear a suit if you're a guy. You don't need to wear, of course, a ball gown, or it's not black tie.
So your Sunday best. I mean,
Right.
You can take it down a little notch from that, but you just want to look presentable.
Right. You want to look like you at least put some thought into your outfit. You don't want to look like you just rolled out of bed. And that's particularly important now because we do a lot of Zoom court. And because it's Zoom and because a lot of people are doing it literally from their bedrooms, you're shocked how often people just show up in bedhead or T-shirts or pajamas, and
It's embarrassing.
it does not create probably the impression you want to create on the person that's going to make decisions about your life.
Right. If the judge is showing up dressed to the nines, good idea for you too.
Well, the judge wears black. They kind of have a standard
Clearly, I've never committed a crime.
standard outfit.
Thank God. Body language, though, goes along with that, too, because if you dress the part, then you look one way, but body language is so
So
important.
yes, body language is what you need to get in the door.
Okay.
But body language creates an impression, and it's a subtle impression that we don't always think about. And the way that most courtrooms are set up, judge is looking at you, right? Judge is looking out at the courtroom, looking out at both the parties and the lawyers. He's got a view, or she's got a view of everybody in the room, even if you're not talking. So if the other side is giving testimony or the other lawyer is arguing and you're shaking your head or you're scoffing under your breath or you've got your arms crossed and you're trying to wrap yourself all around your body, it's going to be noticeable. And it's going to signal that you're not pleased with what's going on, or that perhaps you've got a bit of a temper, or perhaps you've got underlying anger at the other person. And while that all may be true, you don't need to give it away, right? You don't want to communicate something that you're not saying, right? And a lot of what judges look at are those subtle cues, the body language, how do people hold themselves when the other person's talking, because it gives them an insight into who's really there behind the mask. Am I getting, or am I hearing the truth when that person is talking, or are they putting on a good show? And, the way that they make that distinction is, whether or not you're able to conduct yourself and compose yourself when somebody else is talking.
So that kind of goes into handling nerves. You think people are nervous, I would imagine, and when they're in there and they're nervous, that's a good way to think about it. There's a golden rule in court. I was reading about it. Tell me if I'm right. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the lawyer here. I'm the moderator. But the golden rule is everything's on record. Even if you think you're not being watched, you are. Yeah.
Everything's on record. You're going to be in the decision maker's line of sight the whole time. And so you just don't want to do something that's going to undermine all the wonderful things you just said. If you give excellent testimony, you seem credible, you seem concerned, you make the correct impression, you don't want to blow it by scoffing or doing all of those things that some people do when the other side's talking, because now all of that wonderful ground you just laid, all of those anecdotes that you were able to share, the tears that might have been perfectly timed, doesn't matter, because it looks like it was a show. And that's the other thing. When you come to court, we're not expecting everyone to be a trained actor. Not everyone, other than KG, is a trained media personality.
Hey.
You're not supposed to be totally scripted. You're not supposed to be totally emotionless or overly emotional. You're telling the story of your life and of what happened. And so if you're talking about things that have happened truthfully and accurately, well, they should come across organically. You should be able to make that impression. Now, one thing people do is overly explain things or go down rabbit holes, and that's something that it's important to focus on. But if you're able to share your experience and if you're doing it in a truthful way, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Right. Well, let me segue into emotions. People get emotional. You just touched on that, and people get really emotional. It's an emotional thing. But are there ways to control that you should control that? Too much, too little? I'd be taking Visine into court, making myself cry because I want to look.
Right. Well,
sad.
yeah, because you don't have emotions, but for those of us that do,
He's not wrong.
there's a difference between healthy emotions or emotions that are somewhat expected. If you're talking about your children and where they're going to live and the uncertainty of what their living situations are going to look like when they're two households, well, that's going to cause people to be upset and create some tears and some legitimate fear, and that's to be expected. In fact, if people aren't getting emotional, it's almost more concerning sometimes, because you wonder, why?
Yeah.
Maybe why don't they care? But the emotion you need to really try to keep a lid on is the anger. The anger is what gets people in trouble, because if you're angry, if you are showing your disdain all over your face, that's going to create the impression that it's going to be hard for you to support, for instance, your children's relationship with the other parent. And that's a big concern for courts. Or it's going to signal that your motivations are more punitive toward the other side. You want to try to get them instead of really trying to figure out how to move on. And so trying to temper your anger or moderate your anger is I think, the most difficult thing that people will have to figure out before they get into a courtroom, because it can really hurt the goals they're trying to achieve.
And I can imagine, I don't know, again, I've never been to court, thank God, we'll see. But judges remember you. If you do lash out in anger, I would imagine a judge would remember that. And I think that could go into play, as you've said many times, but they are going to remember. Like, let's say, what do you do, a recession where you have to take time? Is that something? Am I wrong?
Recession?
Yeah, or a
recess?
A recess. That's why I'm the moderator. Okay, if you have to take a recess.
We take a recess, right. We're going to take a recess in this episode.
As soon as I make up my own words.
So, yes, judges will absolutely remember you, and they'll definitely remember if you do something that is memorable.
Well, time out. I'm serious. Let's say, because people have these questions, okay? They do. I mean, you think about it. I can't take the judge cookies and like a bottle of wine and be like...
No, you can't bribe the judge.
Okay.
that is
I think the people needed
that
to
is
know.
frowned upon.
I think they needed to know. So
Right. No, there's no bribing of judges. But what you are trying to do is convince the court of who you are. You're going to go into court and you're going to articulate a position. What you want, what you think is in the children's best interest. And you're both going to say the words, but you're also going to carry yourself in a way that either shows that you're well-meaning and that you're telling the truth, or you're going to carry yourself in a way that says the opposite. And that, I think, is the most challenging thing. And the best way to get to a place where your emotions, particularly the negative emotions, aren't, undermining what you want, is to take the time before you get into court and process it. Find ways in which you can separate the court case, the legal action, from the disdain or the anger that you feel toward the other person.
it's really good advice. And I think, I would imagine too, going in with a certain sense of confidence, maybe doing whatever you do before you prepare for something big that you've done in your life, whether it's like a presentation, a work event. It's kind of like that, I would imagine. You go in and you want to present yourself with that confidence, even though you might be tired, you might be beat down, you might just be over it. But if you go in with that confidence and you can say, hey, I'm here, let me present this. It's almost like a presentation. Like you said, everybody's not an actor and you don't want to go in there and act, but
right,
presenting.
Confidence is great, and I wish everybody, or I wish there was a secret to getting it, because certainly there have been times in my life where I had wanted to be confident and just struggled to find it. And I don't want to put that expectation on everyone, because when you're going through perhaps one of the hardest times of your life, you may not be feeling very confident, or you may not be feeling like yourself. And so I wouldn't say confidence is the most important thing. What, though, makes the most credible witnesses, at least in my experience, are those that are just telling the truth, that are telling their experience. Because if you're not making something up, if you're not trying to create a memory or finesse it, then it's not going to be difficult, because you know it, you lived it, you can say it. Oftentimes people want to try to change things to fit what they want, where they expect the court's going to care about, or to impress the other lawyer, or to make it sound better. And what that often does is just creates a situation where you just don't seem like you're telling the whole story. Yeah. And that causes nerves and causes people sometimes to fall apart. But truth is great. It's your life. You lived it.
You lived it. It's yours. My last question, I've always been curious about this. If you're in court, can you bring a cell phone? Should you bring a cell phone, a tablet, a laptop, or just leave all that behind?
Well, I mean, you can bring it, but don't start scrolling Facebook in the
Right.
middle of a court session. I wouldn't bring a laptop unless you're using it for some legitimate reason. But no, we're in court for a serious reason. It's for a decision maker to make a decision that you and your co-parent are not able to make on your own. And so it has to be treated as a serious place, because serious decisions are going to be made. And in the Zoom era, that can be difficult sometimes, because you don't always have the courthouse and the ornate courtrooms to kind of create that sense of importance. But it doesn't undermine, or it doesn't change the fact that you want to be the best version of yourself you can be. And you want to put the best foot forward that you can. And so you just don't want to do something that's going to make the court remember you for all the wrong reasons.
When you walk in to a courthouse, I think there's an air to it. You're like, I'm here to get a job done. Zoom court, to me, seems very different. If a person is uncomfortable, say, going on Zoom court rather than real court, do they have a choice, or is that just something since COVID that said we're going to do it this way?
Yes, there is a choice. Certain types of hearings, small hearings, are largely on Zoom. A lot of judges have gone back to in-person court, so Zoom is not as prevalent as it used to be. But yeah, absolutely. If you want to appear in person, court's going to let you do it.
I'm Katie Garner. This is board certified attorney Jay Henderlite, and we are so thankful that you joined us for our podcast. If you have any comments or any topics you'd like for us to discuss, tell us in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you next time.